The Archons are the guards, 7 of them, in 7 heavens stacked over your head, and the Gnostic books say, every one of you has to get past all 7 on the way out. They are not devils. That is the first thing every summary of these texts gets wrong. They are officials. 7 names. 7 faces, 6 of them borrowed off animals, and 1 of them made of fire. 7 checkpoints, each with the same 2 questions, and the wrong answer sends you back down. The Heretic Codex has the whole file open tonight, on the jailers the Gnostics warned about, and it starts with their name, because their name is the one thing nobody translates and it changes everything. And the 7th of them is the one that gives the whole system away. Hold that until we get there. 3 things tonight. First, the system, taught properly, before anybody is named, because 7 near-identical descriptions turn to mush by the 4th if you meet them cold. Then the 7 themselves, out of the book that lists them. Then the way up, which is the part everybody wants. The checkpoints, the 2 questions asked there, and the answers a man is told to give. You are not asked to believe a syllable of it. These are documents, and documents can be handled by anybody. Start with the word, because it was never a mystical one. Archon is ordinary Greek, and it is not a word about spirits at all. It means a ruler in the civic sense, an officeholder, a magistrate. Classical Athens had 9 of them, appointed each year, running the courts and the festivals and the religious calendar, and the senior one gave his name to the year. An Athenian dated his own life by whichever Archon happened to be in post, the way a clerk dates a file. That is the word these writers reached for. Not demon, not devil, not adversary. They had all 3 available in Greek, and they did not use them. They picked the word for the man behind the desk. Everything strange about this literature follows from that choice, and most summaries lose it in the first sentence by calling the Archons demons. They are administration. The horror in these books is not that something evil got loose in the world. It is that the world is being run, competently, by people who do not know who they are working for. Now the frame, before a single one of them is named. The Apocryphon of John. The word Apocryphon just means hidden, so the title is John's hidden book, and it holds the fullest account of this system that survives anywhere. Its description of the 7 is not a story. It is closer to a staff list, and every entry fills in the same 4 fields. Field 1, a name. Field 2, a face, and the faces are borrowed off animals, mostly. Field 3, a heaven, because each of them holds 1, and they are stacked in the order the book names them, first at the bottom and 7th at the top. Field 4, and this is the odd one, a quality. Every Archon is issued with a quality along with the post, the way a rank comes with a uniform. 4 fields, 7 times. Learn the shape now, and the list will not blur, which is exactly what happens to a viewer who meets Astaphaios cold. If you want the Gnostic library opened up and read out properly, the rulers, the Counterfeit Spirit, and the bishops who tried to bury all of it, make sure to subscribe to the Heretic Codex. So, the 7 of them, in the order the book gives, and pay attention to the 4th name, because it is one you already know. The first is Athoth, and he has the face of a sheep. The second is Eloaiou, with the face of a donkey. The third, Astaphaios, has the face of a hyena. The 4th is Yao, and his face is a serpent's with 7 heads. The 5th is Sabaoth, whose face is a dragon's. The 6th, Adonin, wears a monkey's. And the 7th is Sabbede, whose face is not an animal at all. Now say 4 of those names again, slowly, and listen to them, because this is the part that turns a curiosity into an argument. Yao, Sabaoth, Adonin, Eloaiou. Yao is Yao in the Greek. Yao is how Greek speakers in Egypt wrote the name of the God of Israel, the 4 letters an Israelite would not pronounce out loud. Sabaoth is not a name at all in Hebrew. It is a word, and the word means armies. It arrives in the Bible bolted onto the divine name hundreds of times over, the Lord of hosts, the Lord of armies. Adonin is Adonai, which means Lord, and it is the word a reader says aloud in synagogue, precisely so that the unsayable name is not said. Eloaiou is Eloi. Behind that stands El and Elohim, which is the ordinary word for God in the first sentence of Genesis. 4 of the 7 guards are wearing the names of the God of the Hebrew Bible. Not names like his. The titles from the Psalms and the Prophets and the opening line of the first book, handed out one apiece to a row of officials with animal faces, a heaven each, under a maker who is certain there is nothing above him. That is not a decorative choice, and it is not an accident of transmission. It is the entire claim of this literature, made in 4 words, before a single line of argument is offered. These writers were not inventing a new pantheon to sit alongside the Bible. They were reading the Bible. They noticed that its God is called by a great many names, in a great many moods, and they answered it in the flattest way available. Those are not moods. Those are different beings. And here is the staff list. You can disagree with that reading. Irenaeus did, at enormous length. But nobody can call it lazy, and nobody who has read the Hebrew Bible closely can pretend the observation underneath it is invented. Now go back over that and notice what it is not. There is no wolf, there is no goat, no bat, no black dog, nothing out of the pack of images that European Christianity spent the next 1,000 years building. 4 of the 7 are a sheep, a donkey, a hyena, and a monkey. Those are the animals of a farm, a market, and a traveling menagerie, and the first of them is the animal this same tradition uses for Christ. The other 3 are a serpent, a dragon, and fire, which were standard furniture in the older religions of that part of the world, and were not invented for the occasion either. Whoever wrote this was not building a bestiary to frighten anybody. He was describing a middle management, and for 4 of the 7 posts he reached for livestock. Then the qualities, issued 1 to each, in the same order. Goodness goes to Athoth, providence to Eloaiou, divinity to Astaphaios, lordship to Yao, kingdom to Sabaoth, envy to Adonin, understanding to Sabbede, who in this passage the book calls Sabbatean, because even inside one manuscript the 7th one's name will not sit still. So the 4 fields are full, a name, a face, a heaven counted from the bottom up, and a quality issued with the post. Now read the qualities on their own, in order, because there is something wrong in the middle of them. Goodness, providence, divinity, lordship, kingdom, envy, understanding. 6 of those are the vocabulary of a throne room, and any bishop in the 4th century would have signed off on every one of them. And sitting in position 6, on the same list, in the same tone, with no comment attached, envy. Nobody flagged it. The scribe wrote it down between kingdom and understanding, as though it belonged there, because in this system it does. Envy is not a vice these beings fell into. It is their job description. The 7th, and this is the one I said gives the system away. Sabbade's face is fire. He holds the top heaven, the last one under the ceiling, and the quality issued to him is understanding, which happens to be the one thing his maker does not have. And then, directly after his name, the book adds a line of 7 words that turns the entire list into something else. This is the sevenness of the week. 7 heavens, 7 days. The Archons are the planets, and it is the text that says so, not a modern reader looking for a pattern. That is what the 7 were to everybody in the ancient Mediterranean: Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, the Sun, Venus, Mercury and the Moon, the 7 things in the sky that move against the fixed stars. Each one held a heaven, a metal, a day, and a set of influences, and every educated person from Babylon to Alexandria could recite the list in order. So the prison in these books is not underground, and it is not a figure of speech. It is the sky, and its timetable is the calendar on your wall, which is why Saturday is still Saturn's day, and Monday is still the moon's, in the language you are hearing this in. One honest limit on that. Which of the 7 holds which planet? The book does not say, and the copies that try to work it out do not agree. The number is the identification, and the week is the identification. The seating plan is not in there, and anybody who gives you one is filling in a blank. That is the system. Now the evidence that any of it is old, because this is the point where an ordinary viewer is entitled to be skeptical. Everything so far comes out of a codex that was in the ground until 1945. So how do we know somebody was actually teaching this in the 2nd century, rather than in the 4th or the 14th? Because the enemy wrote it down first. Around the year 180, a bishop in Gaul called Irenaeus wrote 5 volumes attacking these people, and to attack them he had to describe them. In the first of those volumes he lays out a cosmology whose maker is a failure, with a row of powers underneath him, and he gives their names: Eloaiou, Sabaoth, Adonin, Eloaiou, Aureus, Astaphaios. Hold those against the Codex: Yao, Sabaoth, Adonin, Eloaiou, Astaphaios. 5 of the bishop's 6 land on 5 of the book's 7, and the spellings drift the way Greek and Coptic always drift into each other. And the match is not perfect, which is the interesting part. Irenaeus has an Aureus that nobody in the Codex answers to. The Codex has an Athoth and a Sabbede that Irenaeus never heard of. His order is different from theirs. A forger copying one document into the other would have produced a clean 7 for 7, and what survives is a messy 5 out of 6, with the running order shuffled. That is what a real tradition looks like in the record. A hostile bishop in France, writing to destroy a movement, preserved most of the staff list for 1700 years, and he is a witness against his own case, which is the strongest kind there is. So the 7 are old, they are the planets, and they are officials. What are they actually doing? For that, go to the 2nd text. It is the one the whole subject is named after. The hypostasis of the Archons. Hypostasis is worth a moment of its own. It means the reality of a thing, the substance underneath it, so the title comes out as something like what the rulers actually are. It is a short book, damaged in places, and it opens with a scene the first text also carries. The chief ruler, alone in what he has made, says this: "It is I who am God, and there is none other apart from me." A voice answers out of the light above him. It tells him he is wrong, and it uses a name for him that he has never used for himself, Samael. Then the text stops and translates it on the page, for a reader without the Aramaic, blind God. He is not lying. That is the thing about this scene that people miss. He is not a deceiver making a false claim to fool anybody. He is a manager who has never been outside the building, saying the only thing his position lets him say. There is nothing above him because he has never seen anything above him. His officials are in exactly the same position, only lower. Now the book does something the first one does not, and this is where I want you to stop hearing an argument and start hearing a story, because for the next few minutes it is one. There is a woman in it, and her name is Norea. She is the daughter of Eve. In this telling, when the rulers came for her mother, Eve got away from them by leaving a likeness behind, so that what they laid hands on was a shadow while the woman herself walked off. They never worked out what had happened. They filed it as a success. Norea grows up knowing that story. When she is grown the same, 7 come to her, and their reasoning is on the page, and it is entirely administrative. Her mother was processed, therefore she belongs to them by descent. They open the way officials open, with a precedent. They tell her that her mother came to them, and that she should do the same. Norea does not run. She turns round in front of the whole delegation, and she says it flat. "It is you who are the rulers of the darkness. You are accursed. You never knew my mother. What you knew was a likeness, and it belonged to your own kind, not to her. I am not from you. I am from the world above." That is a woman standing in front of 7 armed officials, telling them their central case file is a forgery, and that they have never once, in the entire history of their administration, understood what they were touching. The chief ruler turns to her with his whole face and answers like a man who has been asked for identification he does not have. "You must serve us, as your mother did," she calls out. Not to him, and not to any of the seven, over their heads, to the God of the entirety. And she is heard. Why she is heard the book does not argue for, and it does not need to, because the ceiling in this cosmology only blocks the view in one direction. They cannot see up. She can be heard through it. An angel comes down. His name is Eloaiou, and the text says he came out of the heavens and the whole world shook underneath him when he landed. He asks her what she wants. She tells him to instruct her about the rulers, because she wants to know how they came to exist, and out of what, and by whose authority. And Eloaiou sits her down and explains the entire system to her. The rest of the book is that lesson. He also answers the thing she did not ask. He tells her the rulers cannot prevail against her, that they never could have, and that the reason is the one she has just shouted in their faces. She is not theirs. That is the last the book has to say about the delegation. They are not beaten, they are not punished, and they do not leave in disgrace. They are simply informed, over their own heads, that the case they opened was never valid, and the story moves on without them. Nothing in this literature ever gets to fight the Archons. It only ever gets to outrank them. Step out of the story and look at what just happened, because it is the shape of the whole literature in one scene. A woman is stopped by authority. She refuses on the grounds of who she is, not on the grounds of what she can do. And the answer to her question is not a rescue, it is a briefing. That is Gnosticism in one paragraph. The problem is not that you are weak, the problem is that you have not been told. Which brings the question that has been sitting under all of this. If the guards are that limited, and the way out is knowing something, why does anybody stay? The answer is the cleverest idea in the whole system, and it is in the Apocryphon of John. The Archons do not keep people in with walls, they do it with a copy. The book calls it the Counterfeit Spirit. The rulers cannot make a soul, because they do not have whatever it is that makes one. What they can do is forge an imitation of it, and issue that instead, and set it inside a person alongside the real thing. So the prison is not around you, it is in you. The counterfeit spirit is the part that wants what the system has to give, that is anxious in exactly the ways the system rewards, that mistakes the appetites it was issued with for a self. It works because it does not feel like a guard. It feels like you. And the book goes further than that, into a passage almost nobody quotes, mostly because it is close to unreadable. Having built the counterfeit, the Archons build the body around it, and the Apocryphon of John lists the work. Not in outline, part by part. There is a named power over the bone, another over the sinew, another over the flesh, another over the marrow. Then it goes smaller, a named entity for the right eye and a different one for the left. One for the nose, one for the lips, one for the fingernails. It keeps going for pages, hundreds of names, an angel to a joint. Reading it aloud is unbearable, and that is the point. Somebody sat down and wrote a personnel roster for a human being. The book even tells you where it got the list. It says the details are in another work, and it names the work. The Book of Zoroaster. That book has never been found. It is one of the cleanest dead ends in this literature. A footnote in a Coptic book, copied in the 4th century, pointing at a document nobody has ever laid eyes on. Pistis Sophia, a much longer and much later Gnostic book, spells out the paperwork from the other end. In its account, the Archons issue 2 things to a person at birth, together, as a set, a counterfeit spirit and a destiny. Your fate and your false self requisitioned from the same office on the same day. And there is a passage in the Apocryphon of John where John asks the question every reader wants asked. What happens to the souls who never work any of this out? Is that it for them? The answer he gets is not a threat, and it is not a comfort. Souls that receive the Spirit of life get out. Souls held by the Counterfeit Spirit do not, but they are not destroyed either. They are put back into a body, and then another, until one of them wakes up. The text uses a plain, industrial word for it. They are handed over. Only one group is written off entirely, and it is not the ignorant. It is the people who were told, understood, and turned away afterwards. The logic holds with everything else in the system. Ignorance is a condition, and it can be cured, so nobody is condemned for it. Knowing and refusing is a decision, and a decision is the one act in this cosmology that genuinely belongs to a person. So there is a way out. And now the part everybody actually wants, which is what the way out looks like from the inside. It looks like a border crossing. The text for this is the first Apocalypse of James, which is a conversation between Jesus and James before the crucifixion, and most of the conversation is preparation for the journey. The beings who stop you on that journey are not called demons in it, they are called toll collectors. Hold that word for a second, because a Greek speaker in the 2nd century heard it the way you hear customs officer. The telones was the man at the harbour, or on the road out of the city, who stopped goods and people, checked what you had, and charged you. He was despised, he was ordinary, and he was everywhere. That is the last thing standing between a soul and the outside, not a devil with a pitchfork, a customs post. And there is a second, completely independent description of that same border, from the other side of the argument again. Around the year 248, a Christian scholar in Alexandria named Origen sat down to answer a pagan philosopher called Celsus, who had attacked Christianity 70 years earlier. Celsus had got hold of a diagram used by a Gnostic group, and he described it, and Origen went and found one so he could describe it better. Between the two of them, a hostile philosopher and a hostile theologian, the thing survives. It is a chart of the 7, in order, with the animals attached, and the animals are not the ones in the Apocryphon of John. Here the first is a lion, then a bull, then something amphibious and hissing, then an eagle, then a bear, then a dog, then an ass. 7 gates, 7 faces, and beside each one the form of words a soul was to use going through it. 2 hostile witnesses, 70 years apart, in different cities, describing the same architecture with different furniture. The gates are always 7, the faces are always borrowed. There is always something to say at each one. Origen writes those forms of words out. Long ones, name after name, in the shape anybody who has seen a Greek magical text would recognize. They are the one thing in tonight's material that would stop being a quotation and start being an instruction the moment they were read aloud on a channel like this one, so they are staying on the page where he left them. What matters here is that they exist, that a hostile writer copied them down, and that they take the same 2 questions as their subject. And the text tells James exactly what happens at 1. The officials ask 2 questions, and they are the 2 questions any border guard asks. Who are you? Where are you from? James is given the answers. He is to say that he is a son, and that he is from the Father, and that he has come from the one who was there before anything, and that he is going to the place he came out of. Now here is where every article on the internet gets this wrong, so be careful with it. That is not a password. The whole architecture of these books forbids it from being one. If a formula could get a soul past the checkpoints, then knowing the words would be enough. And the entire argument of this literature is that knowledge means understanding what you are, not memorizing what to say. A man who recites those lines without being what they describe is a man handing a border guard somebody else's passport. Which is why nothing said tonight is a procedure. These are answers to a question about identity, written down in a book, and the book's own position is that the answer is either true of you or it is not. One detour, because this idea was not confined to the people the bishops were hunting. The Corpus Hermeticum is the philosophical religion of the same centuries and largely the same streets. respectable enough that Renaissance cardinals collected it, and it describes the identical journey. A soul climbing back up hands something over at every level it passes. The appetite at one, the scheming at the next, the arrogance, the greed, until what arrives at the top has nothing left on it that came from the journey down. That is the same idea with the accountancy reversed. Coming down, you are issued with equipment. Going up, you hand it in. Detour closed. Back to the officials, because there is one more thing the record says about them, and it is the reason this cosmology has never quite gone away. None of these texts says the Archons are evil. Look for it. It is not there. They are ignorant, they are jealous, they are limited, and they are absolutely certain they are in charge. What no book in this literature ever does is make them wicked the way a devil is wicked, with a plan and an appetite for it. They are staff. And that is a far colder proposition than a devil, because a devil can be blamed and fought and eventually beaten. An administration cannot. It has no center, it has no motive beyond continuing, and every individual in it is doing an ordinary job to the best of a limited understanding. Nobody in it is malicious. Nobody in it is going to stop. Which is why this reading keeps coming back in new clothes. The modern version does not use the word Archon. It talks about the system or the algorithm, or asks whether the whole thing is a simulation and who is running it. Same question 2,000 years apart, and the ancient version is more precise. It does not ask whether the world is administered, it asks whether the administrator knows what he is. Now put the 7 back together one last time, because the picture only works assembled. 7 officials with borrowed faces, one to each planet, each issued with a virtue except the one issued with envy. Above them the thing that made them, certain there is nothing over its head, and saying so in good faith. Underneath them, a population carrying a forged interior that feels like a personality. And on the way out, a customs post with 2 questions. Who are you? Where are you from? That is the entire machine, and every part of it is administrative. There is no torture in it, and there is no furnace. The worst thing in the Gnostic universe is not a punishment. It is a filing error that nobody in the building has the authority to correct. And there is one more thing, and it is the only thing about the Archons that has actually changed in 2,000 years. Go back to the mechanism. The counterfeit spirit does not work by force. It works by keeping a person from being told. That is why Eloaiou comes down at all, and it is why the answer Norea gets is a briefing rather than a rescue. The system these books describe is held together from top to bottom by nobody explaining it. Now look at what that means about the last 80 years. For 17 centuries, the only account of this system anybody could read was written by the men who wanted it gone. Irenaeus is a fine witness, and he is still the prosecution. Then a farmer broke open a jar in Upper Egypt in 1945, and none of it was proved. Nothing in these books can be proved. But the briefing Eloaiou gives Norea is now in paperback. It is in every major language, in every large library, on the shelf of anybody who wants it, for the price of a sandwich, translated by scholars who argue about the details in public. The 7 names, the 7 faces, the qualities, the sevenness of the weak, the counterfeit spirit, the 2 questions at the gate, all of it, out loud, in the open. On the system's own terms, that is the largest event in its entire history. Whatever else is true or false in these books, the one condition they name as the mechanism of imprisonment, that nobody tells you, stopped being the case in the lifetime of people still alive. Which leaves the question the Archons were an answer to, and it is not a small one. Every religion has to explain why a world made by something good is administered so badly. The usual answers are a fall, a test, or a mystery. These books give a 4th, and it is the one answer in the ancient record that a modern person recognizes without any training at all. The world is not badly run because somebody wants you to suffer. It is badly run because the people running it are not very good, They cannot see past their own level, and there is nobody above them they can be reported to. That is the Archons, officials, not devils, and every one of them believes he is the top. Let me know in the comments whether you read those 7 as a description of the sky or a description of an office. And if you want the books themselves rather than the system inside them, the whole story of the Gnostic Gospels is on this channel, the jar they came out of, what is written in them, and the men who decided they should not exist. Make sure to subscribe to the Heretic Codex